I'm here at Reefapalooza Dallas, rolling out a brand new term for you, pod-tacular, as in copepod-tacular. I'm here with Chad from Reef Nutrition, who has a huge background in pods. I did not know this until yesterday, but you've got all different types of pods. I even got corrected on the internet a couple weeks ago about using certain pods and using the wrong pod. So Chad, set me straight on which pod, which is which, and where do I use each one?
Okay, well, we have two different species of copepods. One is Tigger californicus. We call them Tigger pods.
The red one.
And yeah, those are the bright red ones. They're quite large, and we pack about 3,000 per bottle. And then we've got the Apocyclops panamensis, we call the apex pods. Now, the Tigger pods, you'll see them in a bottle just like this, typically in a refrigerator. They can tolerate very cold temperatures, but do well in our tropical temperature aquarium systems.
Do I have to keep them refrigerated?
So if you want to hold on to them for a few days after you've bought them, you're
Okay.
not quite ready to add them, or you want to add half the bottle one week and then half the bottle the next, you can do that. But typically people buy them and they put them in their tank immediately.
Right.
Now, adding them to the tank, there's special instructions for that. You kind of want to wait for the lights to be out, turn off all the pumps, let the tank go calm. That way, when you add the copepods, they have a chance to get into the tank and settle in and hide before they get eaten or
Okay.
before they go into your filtration, into your sump. Which is fine, they can go into the sump as long as there aren't any bag filters to capture them. And so if you have those, it's a good idea to remove those also for about maybe a day or so. And that way, if they circulate through into the refugium, they don't get caught by the filters. And this is basically a general method of adding copepods to a tank.
Will these guys make it past the return pump?
Yeah, they can survive getting pumped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now what about putting this in a syringe and like injecting it into the rock or the substrate?
Right, there are some people that will do that too. Yeah, I've seen
Okay.
people use a turkey baster to
Yeah.
kind of shoot them into the rock and give them a better chance at getting in there and surviving before the predators start coming after them.
Because if I just put it in my tank, these guys like hide, you can't miss them, they're
Yeah,
consumed.
exactly. They're very conspicuous. If you have a refugium, you can add them to the refugium at any time.
And these are going to grow in a refugium? Do I need to dose
So-
Fido?
Right, so the Tigger pods do best in a refugium in the presence of predators. So if you've got a lot of predators in your display tank, wrasses and mandarin dragonets, these guys tend to get consumed before they can really get a population going.
Okay.
And so if you have a refugium, that gives them a better chance of populating at least the refugium, and then some of them making their way up into the display.
So in my refugium, it gets all grown out and I can look in there and see pods and stuff. Can I just grab some algae at night and like shake it in the tank?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, if you've got Chaetomorpha, hair algae or something growing in there, some macroalgae, that's a great habitat for them, and it's really good to do that, to pull that out, shake it to the display to get them, into the display as
Okay.
well.
But the key thing is after lights out and then turn off the pumps so they don't get swept away.
Right. And wait about 30 minutes and then you can turn the pumps back on.
Okay.
Get everything going.
So that's the Tigger pods, but the Apex pods, no refrigeration on those.
Right, so the Apex pods we have found don't tolerate long-term refrigeration. We have found that at about 5 or 6 days, they just don't do well. They start to die off.
Okay.
So you would typically see those at room temperature at a LFS, or if you're buying them online, they would just come to you as is, shipped with either perishables or non-perishables.
Do they tolerate
typically.
some heat
So-
as well?
Yeah, they can tolerate high temperatures as
Okay.
well.
So even if it's summer and I'm getting it in Tennessee or Texas, I'm not worried about them dying off.
Right.
Okay, so I can leave them room temp, dose them in the tank, wait a couple days. These guys, I need the caps off. Do I have to leave the caps off on the
Yeah,
Apex
we
pods?
prefer that everybody pops the caps when holding them because we pack a lot in the bottle and we don't want them to consume the oxygen and suffocate basically. So
Okay.
keeping the cap popped open allows for gas exchange and oxygen. So.
Then you have a dead pod product, octopods.
Yes, we do. Yeah, we actually have 3 concentrated dead copepod products. Arctopods is one of them, pack pods, and Tigger Feast.
Okay.
So there's 3 different kinds, and there's different applications for them. Arctopods are very good for finicky fish.
Okay.
You can also target feed LPS corals and soft corals.
So
with
they're
those.
bigger.
Yeah, they're the biggest one that we have that's dead. And then the Tigger Feast is actually 54 bottles of Tigger pods in one bottle. That's the equivalent biomass.
Show me this.
And they're 100% aquacultured. So here's the Tigger Feast.
So
And you
these-
can see it's top to bottom with Tigger pods.
And they're dead.
But they're not alive.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this product is incredibly unique because it's aquacultured. It's not, we don't collect these from the ocean. We don't buy these from somebody that's collected them. It's incredibly unique in this hobby.
And you
in
grow
the industry.
them.
Yes, and we grow them. And how do we grow them? We feed them phytoplankton.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that leads us into what to feed the copepods.
Okay, but some people like whatever they're going to live with food that comes down or detritus.
Sure.
But you recommend feeding them phyto.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Especially if you've got them in a refugium where they're more concentrated, you can give them a more heavy feeding dose of phytoplankton. Phyto Feast, we prefer. Customers feed. It's the same blends of algae that we feed to them in the farm. And so if you're feeding them in a refugium, you give them a good concentrated dose, and then that food will make its way, that algae will make its way up into the display. And then any filter feeders and invertebrates, copepods, other pods in the main tank will consume the phytoplankton as well.
And would I ideally turn off my return pump so the phyto is concentrated and hangs in the refugium?
So some people will do that, yeah. Some people will allow the animals to just eat as much as possible before the filters and other animals start to consume them. That's one technique that people will use. They'll also do that in the display. Some people will put it on feed mode, so to speak, and feed the display, allow the algae to disperse, and then your animals consume it as much as possible before your filters start stripping it out and things like that.
So if I'm dosing phyto to feed the pods, how many times a week do I need to do that?
Well, it depends on the biomass or the bio load in the tank, how many animals you have, how old the tank is. You want to start off conservatively. We recommend 1 teaspoon per 100 gallons per day initially.
That's okay.
And so that's a very low dose. You can even go lower than that if you want, and then increase the dose over time as you start adding in more phytoplankton eaters, like corals, filter feeders, things like that, and as your pod population starts to grow. And the pods will also eat organic waste and naturally occurring algae that's in the system, but having a supplemental feeding of phytoplankton with the Phyto Feast is very good for them, because there are species in Phyto Feast that aren't going to be growing in your system.
Okay, so then you have Phyto Feast and you have another product. They're both refrigerated. Walk me through the difference with those two.
So Phyto Feast, it's good for at least 9 months refrigerated.
Okay.
It's the most concentrated phytoplankton product on the market. You get a lot of biomass for your money. And we also have another algae that we call RG Complete. And so this one is good if you want to culture the copepods. And so we do give instructions on culturing copepods on our website. We have a Tigger pod FAQ and an Apex pod kind of culture PDF.
Okay.
And so we do feed them the non-viable algae that we grow. So they're not getting live algae. And so
they're okay with that.
This algae, and they don't care. Yeah, they could care less. And so the algae in this bottle and in the Phyto Feast are not alive, but the cells are fully intact. And so all that nutritional value, all the qualities of that cell, that phytoplankton cell, are locked inside. And basically the development is arrested. They're not going through cellular fission. The cells aren't replicating themselves. So when the animal eats it, they get all the nutrition.
Do I need to refrigerate these?
Yes, so these are all refrigerated products. We do add some salts and some acids to maintain pH in some of our products, but refrigeration is basically the way we preserve the products.
Okay.
And that's why they're perishable.
So in my tank, I've got a 1,000-gallon tank. I've got a pipefish. I've got 4 mandarins and some other predators that don't eat pods. How often should I be bombing the tank with pods?
Yeah, that's always a tricky question, because it depends on how the age of the tank. Because the older the tank, the more pods there's going to be, the better population there's going to be. But of course, it depends on predation. How heavy are the predators eat? How many copepods are the predators eating every day?
Sure.
And are they getting ahead of the population, so the population can't expand and it's contracting, and they're eating them before they can reproduce themselves? And so it's kind of hard to gauge, but a lot of people will add copepods roughly every 3 months or 6 months. Some people with very small systems with a predator like a mandarin, where a mandarin can consume a lot of pods in one day in a small space, those people are typically adding copepods once a week to those systems.
Okay.
And both species are good for mandarins and pod eaters.
The Arctopod or the Tiggers?
The Apex pods and the Tigger pods, the live ones, yeah.
I always get it wrong. Apex, Arctic.
Okay,
Forget the Arctic. I'm a warm water guy. So are you from California. So Apex pods and Tiggers, but the Tiggers are going to get picked off really quick.
Yeah, they're very conspicuous, bright red. They're basically just easy to find. And so they typically don't do well at populating a system, and that's why we worked with the apex pods. They're smaller, they reproduce faster, and they're pretty much, once they're in your system, they're there forever. And they're a good part of your zooplankton biodiversity, your cleanup crew as well.
Yeah, they're rolling around. And we can't see them, but they're doing their thing.
Right, and sometimes you can see them. You know, if you get some film, we always get that biofilm on the glass.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can see them coming up on the glass. You know, just moving around. If you have a little magnifier or something to watch them, some people will flash a light at night on the gravel or on the glass in the refugium or the display,
cool.
and you can see them that way as well. But you know, if you've got pod predators, typically you're not going to see them on the glass because those guys, wrasses and mandarins, are just picking them off all day long.
So great.
So,
Okay, so then the one thing that I've never seen you guys do is an amphipod product.
Right.
Any live amphipod cultures out there?
That's something that we're interested in doing. Yeah, there are some people that are doing it currently, and it's something down the road that we would like to do, just to provide more biodiversity in these invertebrates. Especially for people that are starting off their tanks with dead rock.
Yep.
And there's nothing growing on that.
That's me.
So you got to get things in there, not just the bacteria, but zooplankton, because these are things that live in the reef. It's part of the ecosystem.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, it's time to bomb my tank again. So I'll grab some pods and feed all my guys. Thanks for the rundown, Chad. I got it right now.